Today I'm bringing you the next chapter in the saga of NACS to CCS1 EV charging adapters. Now there are literally dozens of them available, but until now you couldn't purchase one that was actually safety certified. And I said until now, and that's because the Lectron Vortex Plus is now available for sale and it is safety certified. So I have one here, which we're going to take a look at now. I'm also going to take it up to a Tesla supercharger with my Ford F-150 Lightning, and we're going to test it out. We'll do a 20-minute charging session. We'll see how it compares to charging my Lightning without an adapter, as far as time-wise, if it derates, if it overheats, whatever. But we'll give it a good test up at a Tesla supercharger. And I'm also going to speak with Lectron's founder and CEO, Chris Maiwald, about this new adapter. Now, it looks eerily similar to the original Lectron Vortex, but it is different and it is better. And that's why it was safety certified. With that said, let's get into the review. All right, so here's the Lectron Vortex Plus. And as I said earlier, it looks very similar to the original Lectron Vortexes. What I can say is that the casing appears to be a higher quality plastic. It just feels better and it feels thicker than the original Lectron Vortex. Not that this felt cheap, but this feels better. And the other thing that I noticed is that it has an interlocking pin in between the two DC pins on the bottom. That's very important, and that's really the biggest difference between the new Plus and the original Vortex. And let's go back in history a little bit to talk about the original Lectron Vortex. When it first came out, there was a manufacturing problem, a quality control problem, and some of the Lectron Vortex adapters would allow the connector to pull out while it was plugged into a vehicle. And that was a serious safety concern, and Lectron did have to recall a batch of the original Vortex adapters. I actually have one here, and you can see here when you plug in, you could pull it out. You're not supposed to be able to do that because what would happen if the vehicle was charging and there was current passing through this, and let's say somebody pulled it out or tripped on the cable, you would unplug hot, and that would be a serious safety problem. So Lectron did the right thing. They recalled the adapters, they replaced them, they brought out the second generation, which had a much tighter fit, and this will not pull out hot. It's actually hard to get it out, and I actually had some of my followers say they couldn't get it off the Tesla connector, and they had a problem with that. So it was almost as if they made the tolerance too tight, Lectron, so that it wouldn't by accident come out. But they fixed that problem with the Lectron Vortex. This has this interlocking pin in between the two DC pins. When that's depressed, and it would only be depressed if it's plugged into a car, because look at it now, it's not plugged into a car. It'll come out. So I am sure there's going to be people that buy this and say, this is unsafe, you know, it has the same problem the original Lectron Vortex has. It doesn't. Try doing that while it's plugged into a vehicle, because this little pin between the two DC pins, once that depresses, it's an interlock pin. It locks the connector to the adapter. So that will not happen while it's plugged into a vehicle. While it's not plugged into a vehicle, it's fine if it just pulls out. I mean, you shouldn't just pull it out. You should still press the release and pull it out the right way, but there's no harm done if it's not plugged in and charging. So that's the big changes, I think, to this adapter. It has that interlock and also a better casing. Now, I want to mention one other thing, because in the opening segment here, I said that this is the first safety certified NACS to CCS1 adapter that you can buy, and that's true. But some of my followers might say, Tom, you know, a couple months ago, you did a video on the Amphenol NACS to CCS1 adapter, and you said it's the first one to get safety certified. And that's true also. The thing is, you can't buy this yet. Amphenol still hasn't ironed out all of its manufacturing facilities where they're going to make this. So, or obviously they know where they're going to make it now, but I think they had switched factories. So instead of it being available, I think in September it was going to be available. Now they're pushing it back towards the end of this year. Should be available soon, but you can't buy it now. And that's why this is the first NACS to CCS1 adapter that's safety certified that you can buy. This is the first one that actually got safety certified, but you can buy this one today. You can't buy this one yet. So we'll have to wait a little bit until this one's available before you can purchase it if you want to buy the Amphenol adapter. And there are other adapters that are going through safety certification now as we speak and should be coming on soon. So some of the other higher quality adapters that I've talked about here on State of Charge will be safety certified relatively soon. But for now, if you want a safety certified NACS to CCS1 adapter, this is the only game in town, Lectron Vortex Plus. Okay, so what did it get safety certified at? Well, there's a lot of talk about amperage with NACS adapters and what's the right amount that you should have, and should you use an adapter that is safety certified for 380 amps, which is what the Amphenol adapter is if your car pulls 500 amps. Well, yes, because all of these adapters, if they're safety certified, can handle 500 amps for a certain amount of time. Now, the Lectron Vortex Plus actually was safety certified for 1,000 volts, 500 amps. But there's more to the story. It's not safety certified at 500 amps continuous. It depends on the ambient temperature. So let's take a look at how long you can expect to be able to pass 500 amps through this, depending on what the ambient temperature is while you're charging. All right, so as I mentioned, it is safety certified at 500 amps, but that is a temporary load, and the adapter will derate the charging of the vehicle depending on the temperature sensors inside the adapter. So let's take a look at, depending on how hot it is, how long you can expect it to pull a full 500 amps. So if the ambient temperature is 50 degrees Celsius, which is 122 degrees Fahrenheit, the adapter will only hold 500 amps for 8 minutes before it starts to trigger the thermal sensors. And what that'll do is it'll change the pilot voltage, so the vehicle or the charger will lower the current automatically. If the ambient temperature is 40 C, which is 104 degrees, 11 minutes. And if it's 25 C, which is 77 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 minutes. Now, I imagine most people are going to charge somewhere between the 40 C and the 25 C as an ambient temperature. So you can figure, in most cases, the adapter will allow 500 amps to pass through it somewhere between 11 minutes and 16 minutes. And in most electric vehicles, that will be fine, because most electric vehicles, first of all, don't even accept 500 amps. But the ones that do typically don't accept it for very long, only for the first 5 to 10 minutes of charging. For instance, my F-150 Lightning will accept 500 amps, but it'll only do it for about 7 minutes, 6 or 7 minutes depending, and then it lowers the amount of power that it takes in. So if everything works fine with the Vortex Plus here, it should allow the 500 amps to pass through it for as long as the vehicle calls for it. I'm almost never going to be in a charging situation where it's going to be more than 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside. It almost never gets to that where I live and drive. Now, if you live in Arizona or some of the southern states that get extremely hot, you could be in that situation where the adapter is going to derate and have a lower charging speed. It'll still work. You'll charge a little bit slower. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to head out to a local supercharger and test this guy out. Now, I should note that it is about 84 degrees Fahrenheit now, so we should be right in that situation where the adapter should not derate at all, because the Lightning is only going to call for 500 amps for 6 or 7 minutes. And the temperature dictates, according to the papers that Lectron has given me, that that shouldn't be a problem. It should not derate with that ambient temperature and only calling for 500 amps for 6 or 7 minutes. So let's head up to the supercharger and see how well this guy performs. All right, so I'm up here in Alamucci, New Jersey at my local Tesla supercharger. We're going to charge my Ford F-150 Lightning. We have a starting point of 14% state of charge, and I'm going to charge for 20 minutes. Now, I know when I charge the Lightning on non-Tesla superchargers without an adapter, I can get 40% state of charge added when I start at a low state of charge under 20% and I charge for 20 minutes. So we're going to charge for 20 minutes. We'll see exactly how much we get. Now I know the Lightning is going to call for 500 amps for about 7 minutes. And while I don't have a display screen like I do on, say, the EVgo charging networks to see the voltage and everything, I can check my FordPass app and I'll see the charging rate. And I'll know from that whether or not it's pulling 500 amps. We'll see how long it pulls 500 amps. That said, let me plug in now. And the Lightning, like the Mustang Mach-E, has plug-in charge established with Tesla supercharger, so all I have to do is plug in and the vehicle is going to start charging now. Some other electric vehicles that don't have plug-in charge established with Tesla from other manufacturers, you would have to then swipe your app and initiate charging, either the Tesla app or the native app that comes with your electric vehicle. All right, now I'm going to monitor the next 20 minutes and then we'll see how this charging session goes. All right, so I'm back from that charging session. The Lectron Vortex Plus worked fine. There were no issues, but did it charge as quickly as I see my Lightning charge when I'm not using an adapter and just plugging into a CCS1 DC fast charger? Let's take a look at the results. Okay, so first thing I want to mention, it was 84 degrees, so it was not hot enough to have the adapter derate faster than what the Lightning would naturally lower its charging curve. And I mentioned earlier, I'm used to seeing 7 solid minutes of the vehicle accepting 500 amps when it's plugged in at a low state of charge. Pretty much anywhere under 30%, I'll get a solid 7 minutes of 500 amps. However, in this charging session, after about 5 minutes and 45 seconds, I saw the charging rate start to slow down. So I took this screenshot at the 6-minute mark. You could see here that the vehicle's only pulling 156.1 kilowatt at that time, when it should be pulling about 180 kilowatts. So let's take a look at the numbers. Okay, after 6 minutes of charging, the charging rate now was at 156.1 kilowatt. I had added 16.2 kilowatt hour of electricity to that point. The vehicle now is at 27% state of charge. I started at 14% state of charge. So that means it added 13% state of charge in 6 minutes. Now let's take a look at the results of my charging session on the EVgo station. After 6 minutes, the station had delivered 17.2 kilowatt hour, 1 kilowatt hour more. We're still pulling the 500 amps, so the charging rate is 181 kilowatt at that point. And I had gone from 10 to 23%, which added the same 13% as was added on the Tesla supercharger. But at this point now is just when the derating seemed to begin. So now let's take a look at 10 minutes of charging. The Tesla supercharger is now at 34% state of charge. So it has added 20% state of charge. It's delivered 25.1 kilowatt hour, and the current charging rate now is 107.8 kilowatt. And on the EVgo station, we're at 32% state of charge. So it had added 22% of the battery, which is 2% more. We're now charging at 165 kilowatt, which is significantly more than the 107.8 that we're accepting from the Tesla supercharger with the Lectron adapter. And at this point, the station had delivered 28.7 kilowatt hour, which is 3.6 kilowatt hour more. And now let's jump to the end of the 20-minute charging session. Okay, this is the receipt that Ford mails me when I use Tesla superchargers. You can see here that the station reported it delivered 42.1 kilowatt hour. Now, when I ended this charging session, it doesn't show on this receipt here, but I was at 45% state of charge. So I'd gone from 14% to 45% state of charge, which is 31% state of charge was added. On the EVgo charger, after 20 minutes of charging, I had gone from 10% to 51%, which is 41% added, 10% more than what was added during this charging session with the adapter. We had taken in 53.6 kilowatt hour, which is 11.5 kilowatt hour more than what was delivered during this supercharger session using the Lectron Vortex Plus adapter. All right, so does that mean that the adapter is going to significantly slow down your charging? It's possible, but as I mentioned earlier, it's possible that the supercharger station itself was lowering the power. I'd need to do this maybe 10 different times on 10 different superchargers to really understand exactly how it works. But as far as I'm concerned, that's really not necessary. The adapter works, it's safe. Perhaps it derates your charging session, but it does that for safety so that none of the components on the inside overheat. This is made to comply with UL 2252, which is the safety protocol for charging adapters. And if that means that it's going to derate your charging a little bit so that you're safer, as far as I'm concerned, that's the right decision to make. I don't want to use a non-safety certified adapter that just lets current flow through it and the inside components get hotter than what UL wants them to get. So it's possible that the adapter did throttle down the charging, and it's possible it happened from the supercharger. 10% more is significant after 20 minutes of charging. But the fact of the matter is, this is safety certified, it is safe. And as far as I'm concerned, it's worth waiting a couple more minutes knowing that the adapter complies with UL 2252 safety certification, and you're not going to have any problems with internal components overheating and such. All right, well, next up, I'm going to talk to Lectron's founder and CEO, Chris Maiwald, and ask him a few questions about this adapter. What are the upgrades that they made? I think I went over those earlier, but maybe Chris has some other information that I'm not aware of yet. And I also want to talk to him a little bit about the safety certification, because this was certified by a company called SGS. And here in the State of Charge Garage, I have over 250 pieces of electronics, electric vehicle chargers, adapters, extension cables, all kind of EV charging related equipment. Most of it is safety certified. None of those pieces are safety certified by SGS. I had never even heard of them before this. Pretty much all the equipment here is safety certified by the three large certification bodies, ETL, CSA, and UL. And this was safety certified to UL standards, but it was safety certified by a company called SGS. And I want to ask Chris why he selected to use SGS, because quite honestly, they're not one of the three main bodies that most people look for that stamp. You won't find a UL stamp on this or a CSA stamp. What you do see is a SGS stamp. And like I said, I'd never heard of them before. Are they, a reputable NRTL? Let's ask Chris and see what he has to say. I just found it interesting that they used a certification body that, quite honestly, I'm not familiar with, and I bet most people watching this video had never heard of them either. Doesn't mean that they can't test electronics to UL standards. I'm not making that implication at all. I'm just surprised that they used a body that I had never heard of, and I've been doing this for a while. So let's see what Chris has to say about that next. All right, so I'm here with Chris Maiwald. He is the founder and CEO of Lectron. Chris has been on State of Charge before. Chris, thanks for joining again.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
All right, so we're here to talk about your latest product. You have a new and improved version of your NACS to CCS1 adapter, which is a big thing these days in the electric vehicle industry. Everybody seems to be coming out with NACS to CCS1 adapters. There's dozens of them online. Many of them are cheap, unsafe, in my opinion. And I get a lot of my followers asking me about which one should I buy. And there's basically three out there that I recommend, that I've tested thoroughly, that I use on my own cars. Yours is one of them. I've told people to buy the Lectron Vortex now for like a year, but now you've come out with one that's even better. It's called the Lectron Vortex Plus. Can you tell us what the differences are? What are the upgrades you made over your original Lectron Vortex?
Sure. I think the difference on the look and feel side is the housing is more robust. On the grading side, the grading feels more premium. And the most meaningful difference is that the product is UL 2252 certified and has an interlock mechanism that prevents any sort of hot disconnects under any circumstances.
Right. And you have a lot of contracts with major OEMs. It seems like your product has become the default product that all of the major automakers are selling or telling their customers to use. They're making their own branded version of it, but you're the one that's making it. It's basically a slightly different version than what you sell. And I remember early on when Ford came out, that was one of the things they asked for was that interlock. So it seems now you've incorporated it permanently into the Vortex Plus. Will you continue to sell the original Vortex?
For the time being, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So the current Vortex also complies with all legal requirements for adapters to be sold. There were some non-US OEMs that also sold NACS adapters without interlocks. So the product is equally safe. But the little bit of extra compliance with automotive and UL 2252 standards can be obtained with the Vortex Plus.
Right. And I mentioned earlier that many of the OEMs now are selling your product basically. You're contract manufacturing for it, and they're just putting their name on the outside of it. I've had many of them. How many different companies are you making the adapter for now?
I think on the adapter side, various adapters in general, I think we count over 90% of EV makers to our customers, and we're super, super proud of that.
Yeah. So a bunch of these came out before you had UL certification on your device. What I mean, a bunch of these, the co-branded adapters that you're making for Ford and Honda and General Motors and Porsche and so forth. Will you now go? Well, actually, Porsche came to market with it certified. They're the first
That's
ones.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. But now will you go back and get certification for the other ones, or will they continue to sell their adapter without a UL certification on it?
I can't speak on behalf of my customers. Um, the product is the same and complies with all UL 2252 requirements. So there is no deficiencies in terms of safety. Um, with regards to a timeline, when which customer does what, it's probably best to speak to the brands, but all of the products that we ship to our OEM customers are first grade from a quality and from a safety perspective.
Okay. So one of the things that I found interesting was when you came out and this is weeks ago, sent me an email saying we have UL certification. You mentioned that the certifying body was a company called SGS. Now, I have over 250 pieces of electronics in my garage here that I test from various companies. None of them were certified by SGS. They're all ETL, CSA, UL. Why did you select SGS, and are they, on the level of, say, the big three?
Yeah. So we selected SGS because they were the testing lab that helped us run a ton of the automotive tests that we did for one of our big customers. So they were big OEM customers. They're deeply familiar with automotive standards. UL 2252 is a general standard according to which lots of labs can certify to if you're an NRTL, and SGS is an NRTL.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, SGS, in terms of revenue and number of employees, is much bigger than UL and Intertek. It has 7.5 billion US dollars in revenue, 95,000 employees, compared to 15,000 employees from UL. So it is among SGS, Intertek, UL, and CSA. SGS is by far the largest.
Okay. And you had an existing relationship with them testing other products before this, so that makes sense why you would go with them. The other question I have about this is it came out with certification for 1,000 volt, which isn't a surprise, but 500 amp. That's a surprise to me because over the course of the last, say, 6 months, I've learned a lot about how the testing procedure gets done to UL 2252. And I've spoken to at least half a dozen engineers from infrastructure companies, some of the large infrastructure companies, and also some of the manufacturers of companies that are making competing adapters. And their general thought was that we weren't going to be able to get a 500 amp certified adapter. Because of the way 2252, the testing protocol is done, it doesn't allow you to use a liquid cooled cable. And what happens is, if you run 500 amps through a cable that's not liquid cooled, the cable itself gets so hot that it makes the adapter hotter, and then it won't pass the thermal limits of UL2252. So what I'm getting from most of the other companies and the infrastructure companies is that the adapters probably won't be rated at more than 350 to 380, at the most 400 amps. But yours came out with a 500 amp rating. How did you accomplish that?
Yeah. Um, so it also depends on which version of UL2252 you're looking at, right? So there were many iterations between 2023 and 2025. Um,
Mhm.
it is correct that you're not allowed to test with liquid cooled cables. Um, but the size of the bus bar really matters. High grade copper, um, silver nickel plated terminals, really thick bus bars that dissipate the heat. Um, and then there was also some discussion around ambient temperature. But in the final version of UL2252, we were able to put best in class engineering together with a good testing setup and pass 500 amps. It made a lot of customers happy.
Yeah, well, they will be happy to see that 500 amp rating. It makes people feel better because even the lower rated ones, let's say Amphenol came out with a CCS to a NACS, a CCS adapter. It's not available for purchase yet. They're still working through the development stage, the production stage, but their adapter is rated for 380 amps. Now, even with that, and I spoke with Amphenol about this. They said it's fine for passing 500 amps through it for a certain amount, a period of time, and most
Mm.
EVs don't accept 500 amps for a very long period of time. So you can do that, but
Because they derate. That's right.
because
Yeah.
they
Hmm.
derate, yes. So it's just I think people would like to see that 500 amp stamped on the adapter if they know they're passing 500 amps through it. Not everybody really understands how it works and how charging, you're only going to accept 500 amps for a short period of time. Then the vehicle is going to start calling for less. So I think it's really important that you have that stamped on the side, and that an NRTL certified it to that 500 amp rating. So I think it's going to make people feel better. I know there's a lot of concern about using these adapters, and rightfully so, because there's so many of them that are such low quality out there. But
Hmm.
part of the reason why I recommend your brand is because I know you put out quality adapters, and I know you were working hard on getting it certified. We talked about this many months ago, and you promised that as soon as you could get it certified, you would. And it appears that you're one of the first companies to come out. Well, the first company to sell one, but maybe the second company to actually produce a certificate saying that it passed, and
Hmm.
that's really good. What's Go ahead.
UL has changed a lot in the wake of the UL2252 has changed a lot in the wake of the development process. So when we
Mhm,
started the entire process, UL2252 came. There was a version of it dated October 2023
mhm.
that didn't have the requirement for an interlock, that had different temperature rises requirements, and so on and so forth. And between the October 2023 version and the final version that came out in March 2025, the standard changed quite meaningfully. So it was you were building something according to a standard that was still in flux. Which caused a little bit of a delay, but as soon as the March 2025 version of UL2252 came out, was set in stone, we could run the test according to that version and get it certified. Yeah,
So this is certified to the final version, the March 2025 version, to the standards of that version.
that's right. Yeah, and the same test for UL2252 with UL is currently undergoing, and I think will also come out very soon.
All right, well, that's pretty much all I have here today. Chris, thanks for joining us again. I'm sure the State of Charge community appreciates you taking the time to join in. Before we go, is there anything else you'd like to add about the adapter or Electron? Any exciting information we got coming up soon?
Sure. Yeah. First of all, a big thank you to you, Tom. A big thank you to the State of Charge community for your interest, your support, your curious questions. Thank you for keeping us honest. And the entire Lectron team is working super hard on the next generation of charging stations, portable chargers that are coming out in Q1 of 2026. And I hope to be seeing you again then soon next year.
Very good. When the new products come out, we'll have you on again to talk about them. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank Chris once again for coming on State of Charge again to talk to me about his products. Lectron is a very well-established name in this industry. It's perhaps the reason why almost all of the OEMs chose to use the Lectron Vortex adapter as their official adapter that they sell. You know, I've used this many times. I've used the new Plus a few times already, but even the previous version, if you have the previous version, there's no need to run out and buy a new one. It's fine as long as you use it properly. But if it wears out or for whatever reason you want to get another adapter, the Vortex Plus is a very good, well-made adapter with the safety features, and now you know that it's safety certified. So, you know, that's something that a lot of people have been holding off on. I have a lot of my followers saying, I'm not going to buy one until it has safety certification. Well, there's one available today now that you can purchase for the first time that is safety certified. And if you want to purchase this, you can use the link in the description of this video and use the State of Charge coupon code, and you'll get 15% off the Lectron Vortex Plus. Listen, I hope you learned a little bit about NACS to CCS1 adapters here. Well, certainly about the new Lectron Vortex Plus. And if this is your first time here at State of Charge, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming electric vehicle news and reviews. And as always, thanks for watching.